Hey there. Welcome to the NUYU Voices Emerge podcast. And I am truly excited on today because I have two of my most favorite people. I have two of my three children with me. On my left is my oldest child, which is Ki-Jana Harris. Say hi.
How you doing, everybody?
And over here to the right of me is my youngest, my
Good
baby
afternoon.
boy, Keyshawn Harris. And so I always call them my sons of thunder. But in any result, today I want to talk to you about the life of being at an HBCU. My sons are both graduates of, as you can see, ECSU, Elizabeth City State University. And they were, I like to call them, because they are both Kappas, the souls of the yard. I don't know if I can say that or not, but they were very intricate on the campus, doing a lot of things. Both of them were presidents, POMARCs of their chapter. My oldest son actually was the president over all of the Greeks. He can give, when he starts to talk, he can tell you about, they both can tell you more about that time. But I just wanted to talk to them because now that they're both graduates, my oldest son graduated in 2020 and my youngest graduated in 2023. And so I just want to talk to them today about what life was like for them there. And because there's a lot of misnomers about HBCUs. And I know in my generation, people always talked against it. But as I did some history and some fun facts, and they probably already know this, that the first one was Cheney in Pennsylvania, founded in 1837. And that, and it was originally called the Institute for Colored People. And so these came about so that it could bring education to slaves and to the descendants of slaves, because it was so segregated back then. But HBCUs, from what I noticed in my time of being there with them, is that they celebrate the legacy of African Americans. And I loved it. I really enjoyed the time. I myself went to a predominantly white school. And so there was definitely a difference. And so I'm not saying my experience was worse, but I think that if I would have had the opportunity to, I probably would have went to HBCU, because the experience, the legacy, and the celebration of it that they do, it was just awesome. But right now, I'm going to turn it over and I'm going to let them get the opportunity. So, who wants to go first? He is deferring to the oldest.
Okay, so
And so just talk to me about what life was like when you were on campus, and talk to the audience, talk to the people, and tell them the experiences that you shared. And if you could go back and do some things, would you do anything differently?
gotcha. Okay. Well, I got to ECSU in 2016. Essentially, would I do anything differently? Yes, I would have went there when I first went to college, my first time. Reason for that is because it's always a difference being surrounded by people of your color, your you know what I'm saying, your color and everything like that. They take the extracurricular time to look out for you. Nothing wrong with PWIs by all means, but when you have somebody that's really in your corner, that's making sure that they want you to succeed, it takes a real, it's a different lighting, so that's the one thing I would say I would have did differently. I would have came out of high school and went straight to HBCU. The experiences, people there, like, of course I have my mom and dad, but the people there would treat you like a mother and father, so that's the one thing that I did appreciate. They made sure, they took the extra time to make sure that you did your schoolwork, you got the extra tutoring and stuff like that. They introduced you to different things around the campus. Like, of course, Elizabeth City is not the biggest place, which, that actually makes it more of a family-oriented type of situation. But yeah, it was a great experience. Of course, I was fortunate to cross Kappa. I also played football. Another thing that I really did like about going to HBCU was the band. So no matter what, win, draw, or loss, the band always made sure that you felt like you was a winner.
Oh, wow.
So,
yes, good band.
Yeah, good
Shout out
band.
to SOC.
Yeah, shout out to SOC. So, yeah, that's honestly it. And I believe I was very fortunate to get the opportunity because now I have networked with people that I probably would have never had any type of relationship or dealings with because of me being presented with the opportunity to go to HBCU.
All right.
That's good.
Pretty good. So, as she said, my name is Keyshawn Harris. I went to Elizabeth City 2019. I started. It was pretty good experience. I had made a lot of different friends, but unfortunately, as you know, COVID hit in 2020. So my first semester was, like I said, I started that 2019, so that fall semester, that spring semester, COVID hit, and we ended up getting cut short for about a year. So I took about a year of my time on campus, which was definitely a different experience because when you get used to something, it becomes your daily routine. And I was used to what I was doing, playing football, of course, being with my friends and everything. Like I said, with COVID hit, it just changed the landscape of everything. And we had to, instead of me being in person for all my classes, we had to adapt to online learning and hybrid and trying to, I was taking a public speaking class and I had to public speak on Zoom. It was a different experience. So I think starting off, it was a little rocky because of that. Excuse me, when everything came back to normal though, it was another adjustment period because we were so used to, for a whole year, being everything online. Now we got to kind of go back to a hybrid type of situation where some things are online, some things are in person. I had a multitude of classes where we would meet maybe Monday or Tuesday, and then Wednesday, Thursday, Friday was on Zoom or just Blackboard assignments. So other than that, though, it was a very good experience. I'm glad I got an opportunity to go to HBCU. I was able to pledge Fall 21 and cross steps my Alpha chapter, Kappa Alpha Psi, which was very eventful for me. Like I said, me and my brother both from the same chapter. We crossed the Spring 18, so it was a monumental decision. I was able to be the pole marker of the chapter for about 2 years, but before then I was able just to learn the ins and outs of the fraternity and my chapter itself, which was very intricate in my ability to develop, as well as opportunities that was awarded to me. I was able to also experience going to CIAA, which is one of our conference tournament, which is something that me and KJ really hadn't experienced before. So through our chapter, we was able to perform at a step show at CIAA, which I've never been to Baltimore before. I don't think he's been to Baltimore before, so that was a first for us. So we was able, like I said, going to Elizabeth City, specifically that HBCU, awarded us a lot of things that we have not experienced before, at least speaking for myself. Like I was able to be in a position of leadership, which I've been in positions of leadership before, but not to that extent. I've been able to meet different Commonwealth fraternities, city managers, the mayor, just different opportunities that I wouldn't see myself having without going to that school. Of course, I took a different route, double majoring, and that was a little more difficult. But then I would have liked for it to be, but it was a good experience to say the least.
Yeah. I will say that to piggyback on his point. Now we was afforded a lot of opportunities, and like I said, no offense to any PWIs. They are very good schools, but we was both presented with an opportunity to perform in front of thousands of people.
Yes.
And CIAA, if y'all are not aware, is one of the oldest conferences in HBCU history. So, with that opportunity, not only were we rewarded with that situation, we was blessed to meet other celebrities and people like that.
Lance Gross.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? So, honestly, I have no regrets. I have no regrets at all. And then, of course, me being at that school, I was afforded the opportunity to be in school with my brother for a year. Well, like a year and a half, essentially. So, yeah, definitely. It was a great decision. And we wasn't that far from our parents and our family members and stuff like that, and all our close friends. So it was good, geographically as well.
Another fun fact I came across, and you guys may know this, is that during the time and the development of HBCUs, they, back in the 1930s, between 1933 and 1945, as you know, the Jewish community they was going through, and a lot of them were exiled from Germany and those areas. But HBCUs hired those Jewish professors. As you mentioned about the professors, would you say the demographics on the campus, you had majority African American professors, or was it a mixture, a culture? Because one of the things that in my research they were saying was that they believed in diversity. Even though they were an HBCU, they were segregated and could not be in white institutions, they fostered, HBCUs fostered, they welcomed other races to come in and teach.
So you have when it comes to that, you have a good diversity count. I mean, of course, it's predominantly African American people or Black people, whatever you want to call it. But you do have, certain professors who are white, certain professors who are of different races. I think it's a good amount of both. But like I said, it's good to have diversity on a campus so that you can experience all walks of life. If that makes sense, But the thing about HBCUs is you kind of want to keep everything in perspective. So you want it to be diverse, but you also want to keep the main thing, which is, it's a historically Black college. So that's what you kind of want to keep it as, if that makes sense. But you definitely do have points of diversity.
Yeah. And I think also as well, it's very targeted on your specific department. Of course, I got my degree in kinesiology with a concentration in exercise science. So a lot of my professors, when it came to more of the fitness part of my degree, they were, Caucasian, Black, of course. And then when it came to the more of the science part of the degree, it was very diverse.
Gotcha.
Because, essentially, sometimes some people specify in certain departments than others, so that's, but yeah, but once again, I'm still standing on that one point that they honestly really took pride in making sure that their students passed, and that's one good thing that, even with the diversity, they definitely took pride in that, because I believe how it works. If your student fails, that makes the professor look bad, so.
That's good.
Yeah.
You both mentioned, of course, about being a part of the fraternity of being, I don't want to mess it up, but it's Alpha Kappa Psi. Am I saying it correct?
No, Kappa Alpha Psi.
Kappa Alpha Psi. I messed that up completely.
Yes.
As you always say, good. Well, shout out to all of the noobs, right?
Shout out to the good noobs.
To the good noobs. That experience, I know you can't delve so much into a lot of it because there are things that you all taken, vows and things to and oaths. But how was that experience? Because both of you at the time when you were playing football, they have been playing football since they were little boys, 5 years old. And so you were playing football heavily into, your classes. Some of them were your core classes. And then you're crossing. Tell us about that experience. How is that? Because I know you have your line brothers and things like that. How was that experience?
So it's definitely an experience. So like I said, I was able to pledge and cross in the year of 2021. The fall semester, I was the chair of my line. And we were the first line, or one of the first lines, right after COVID. So it was definitely a tedious experience. We had to get tested right before our probate for COVID. It was kind of weird. It was funny, but it was interesting because, like I said, we all had to be vaccinated. We all had to be COVID free per se. So it was one of the best decisions I've made in my life, for sure, because of the fact of the brothers that I gained. Not just my line brothers, the brothers worldwide. the opportunities that was awarded to me for being a part of that chapter, being a part of that fraternity. I met so many people because of that opportunity. So yeah, it was basically one of those things of where I was able to meet a lot of different people. And like I said, for example, when we went to CIAA, we had the opportunity to meet Brother Lance Cross. He recently crossed the alumni chapter. I mean, you have different opportunities. The mayor of Elizabeth City is a brother from my chapter. So it's different opportunities that you are awarded because of the fact that you are a member. And the networking ability is phenomenal. It's astronomical if you think about it. I mean, just for speaking for myself, I've been presented opportunities to meet people in powerful positions because of somebody that I know in my chapter, somebody I know in fraternity, and it's helped me and aided me along the way. So crossing the Epsilon Alpha chapter, Kappa Alpha Psi, was one of the best decisions that I could say that I've made.
Can you repeat the question?
That's okay. We were talking, I was asking about your experience as far as with crossing. And because at that time, you too were coming through, you were playing football in the middle of everything that you were doing. So what was that experience like, trying to manage your classes, football, all of those things?
Gotcha. Okay, so at the time for my experience, this was my sophomore year, and this was kind of like one of the moments where I decided, which was my fault, I decided to take some of my harder courses, physics 1, chemistry 1, and biology 2. So essentially it was kind of difficult, and then also we was in a time period where we was transitioning football coaches. So football was a little difficult at the moment. Schooling was a little difficult at the moment, and of course, I was, trying to be a part of a fraternity. But honestly, I felt like I was prepared for it. You have to be mentally strong to do anything, and I feel like with the challenges of my life with football, because you have to be mentally strong to play football. I hope people understand that and realize that. And I'm the oldest out of 3 children, so I had to be mentally strong to do that as well. So it was a little difficult at the time, but I felt like in order to consider yourself a strong-minded person, you have to be able to deal with strong-minded situations. So it was just another challenge that I just had to face. So yeah, it wasn't too bad.
How is it because you both rose to be the pole marks? As soon as I think you really, when you first crossed, after that, you became the pole mark.
Yes.
And then you became in charge of, say the name of the whole that represents all of the fraternities, or because I messed it
National
up.
Panhellenic Council.
There you go. You were in charge of
for short term we call it NPHC.
Yeah, you were in charge of all of the Greeks on the campus.
I'm gonna correct you for 1 second. So when I first crossed, I was a neo. I wasn't the pole mark at the time, but due to current situations that had happened in my chapter, I had to assist the pole mark at that time.
Gotcha.
So I didn't have necessarily the title, but I had to do the work because the current pole mark had a lot of family issues going on at the time. So I want to still give him his credit, but I definitely did assist him in that. I ended up becoming the pole mark my senior year, and I became the president of all the Greeks my senior year. So to answer your question, and with that current situation from when I was a neo till my senior year, that was probably one of the most difficult times of my life. I will admit that. Being that because, like I said, going into my neo year, we was transitioning coaches, which we basically all had to retry out for the team. And then when I came back, we had a lot of situations going on with the chapter that required us, instead of being neos, we had to really be pros. So when I'm explaining that for a second. When you're a neo, that means you're new in a fraternity. Pros just mean that you've been there for a little while. That's paraphrasing, of course. So my whole line at the time, we all had to get bigger roles in the chapter. And we did not have the experience to do that. So with that, in football, in schooling, of course, because my degree was not easy, it was very challenging. And then the following year is when I actually took over, I guess I'll say legally, as the pole mark. and that's when I was the president of all degrees. Now that was very extreme because, without diving in too much, everything is basically like a voting process, like the presidency and vice presidency and stuff like that. And you have, everybody else that you have to vote on everything. It was hard to get everybody to agree. And I'm not talking about my chapter, of course, but I'm talking about all degrees. And because everybody has their own mentality and mindset, we want things to be ran this way. So trying to get, and I'm not even going to say it was all the men, it was the women as well, trying to get strong-minded individuals to all agree on one thing is not easy. But, in the end, it taught me a lot of patience, time management, how to be professional. So it was worth it in the end. But at the time, I didn't think it was worth it.
So when I had started as my tenure as a Loop on campus, I was originally the MTA chairman, and that is the person who's in charge of all the new brothers who come into the chapter. I did that for about a semester or two, and then when we came to our new calendar year or fiscal year, we voted on new positions, and that's when I in turn became the vice president of the chapter. Due to unforeseen circumstances with the president, we had to change seats, which is something that normally happens. And just like if something was to happen to the president of the United States, the vice president would take over. Same situation. I had took over and became the president for that whole year. We had some struggles as a chapter that year. We was able to get out some very dark places. And we ended up turning around the chapter as far as doing community service events, which we had not done in a long time. We was able and blessed to be on the daily events, the first cover of the daily events, doing community service. We did a multitude of events as far as really across America. We went to Northeastern High School to kind of show the college life to the high school students there. We did a collaboration event with Centaur Healthcare as far as passing out, because this was close to the COVID, right after the COVID time, passing out disinfectant boxes. So it had like a package of disinfectant wipes, bleach, the 9 yards. We actually was able to get all of this done while dealing with outside factors, to say the least. That was my first year as a president, and we came in and re-voted. I finished up my junior and senior year as the president of the chapter. We was able to cross 2 new lines and really just change the outlook of Epsilon Alpha, which was something that we definitely needed, if that makes sense. I believe that we did the most as far as any chapter on campus in those 2 years. I mean, as far as events, you can name it. We had a Kappa Week, which is what we call for our charter week. So whenever your chapter was chartered, that week of events is what you would call your Kappa Week. So we was able to bring that back. Me and KJ first participated in the step show, which we hadn't participated in years.
Since 2019.
Yeah, so that was an accomplishment for us. And then, like I said, we alluded to it earlier, but when we went to go perform in CIAA, that was the first time ever in the history of our chapter that can be documented.
Not to cut you off, the step show that we performed in 2023 was one of the most successful step shows that the Epsilon Alpha chapter has had in years.
Right.
So I just want to allude to that, and I want to give shout out to him and some of the current brothers at the moment, because of that, we actually brought stepping back to the chapter. So I just want to give him credit for that.
Yeah, this is one of the events that we held on campus, Shimmy Like a Nuke, that we hadn't done before. So it was a very successful event. We were able to fundraise a lot of money for some of the community service events that we wanted to partake in. So, so those 2 years was definitely good. Like I said, I was able to cultivate a foundation for Epsilon Alpha coming forward, for the brothers that are still on campus. Like I said, my Neos, we just crossed the line this last fall, right before I graduated. So just instilling in them, the Epsilon Alpha way, basically just giving them pointers and trying to cultivate men, if that makes sense. Because normally when you cross lines, you have sophomores and some juniors, and they're still developing as young men. So what we try to do is instill leadership upon them so that when they graduate, they have the foundations of becoming fathers and just being men in their own right, if that makes sense. Because a lot of them are young and young-minded, if that makes sense, and they make a lot of mistakes. But I'll say this for myself. I understand because I made those same mistakes, and I just try to tell them to learn from their mistakes, because if you learn from it, then I'm not gonna say it was a mistake, but at least you got something out of it, if that makes sense. So it was definitely a good experience.
Yeah, every L don't have to be, you know what I'm saying, a loss. It can always be a lesson. So
Very well said. That was good. That was good. And now after, graduation, you graduated during COVID,
right,
which was
unfortunate.
the graduations, yeah, it was just a little bit different. And then of course you post COVID, but how would, as we get ready to wind things down, life after college? I know for you've started a whole business training
Right.
with KJ,
Right.
and you're preparing for law school.
Yeah.
So what's life like now?
So due to graduation during the COVID period, a lot of opportunities was not presented to a lot of us um, due to lack of, I want to say, experience and things like that. But I will say I'm still fortunate and blessed because I was able to start my own business, training with KJ, where I personal train, strength and condition, and occasionally give out nutrition suggestions. So at first I thought, like I said, you can't take everything as a loss, but you have to learn from your mistakes. A lot of things we were not able to do because it was my degree comes with being hand-on. Unfortunate due to COVID, you cannot be hand-on with your experience and stuff like that. But I will say it still has been a blessing because due to that situation, I'm not going to consider it a loss. Due to that situation, I was able to become a businessman, an entrepreneur. So essentially, I've been rewarded.
Oh yeah, I just graduated in December, so as for me, I'm just taking the next steps, to further my education, as well as trying to develop different skills to become a better, not just a better learner, but a better man in general. Like I said, just waiting on different opportunities to come about. Being very patient, and I know those opportunities will definitely reveal themselves in due time. And when that time comes, I will be prepared for the steps I need to take as far as furthering my education and my career. So,
That's good. So as we get ready to close it out, what nuggets would you leave for the audience on today? If you could tell your past self anything in preparing, what would you tell them?
I would tell myself to definitely take your classes more seriously in your first semester, because that's I had to play a lot of catch up. I definitely ended over a 3.0, thankfully, but I would have been a lot higher if I just would have took my classes more seriously my freshman semester before COVID hit. Because who knew COVID was going to hit, and I would have to struggle through that year. So just tell myself to be prepared and be more cognizant of what I was doing.
I would say this is going back to high school and even into college. Do your history on colleges. When I was in high school, I always thought that you had to go to a certain type of school to play football to get recognized and stuff like that. But I want to say if I would have looked at HBCUs when I was first coming out of college, I believe that a lot of things would have been different for me. So, athletes, basketball, football, whatever sports you play, take the time to look at every school, not just the schools that you feel like is the right one for you. Look at every school because you never know where opportunity can be bestowed on you. So that's my advice. And also, enjoy yourself. Don't allow the sports or stuff like that to stress you out because at the end of the day, we play these sports. If we're not having fun, there's no need to do it no more.
That's good. That's good. Well, I appreciate you all for tuning in and listening to NUYU Voices Emerge on today. And as we just gave a spotlight to HBCUs, and you had the opportunity to meet two of my three. You get an opportunity to meet my daughter soon. So I just appreciate this time. I hope that these nuggets have been instrumental to you, and that everything that was said, well, it has empowered you and inspired you to check out an HBCU. So until next time, thank you for tuning in, where your voice will be heard.